Hi, I'm Reggie Turner. I'm here with Jim Miller and Terrence Moore. FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. We are less than a week away from our newest elections. And gentlemen, we're coming down to the finish line on this thing. And for us, it's that time of year for us to come with our final predictions. And Jim, you've afforded us this year with a spreadsheet.
Man, I do it all for you guys.
Well, I appreciate the fact that we have this so we can get Terrence on the record, because normally what happens in these things, Terrence will say, well, I told you guys this long ago, and there's never any record of him telling us these things.
There's always record. You just too lazy to check it.
That is absolutely a true statement, though it's not Terrence. He usually changes his story.
Thank you, Jim.
Listen, I think that it's clear that Cronkite comes. I give you my opinion. I hold to it.
Until something changes.
Well, I mean, if the circumstances changes, I'm going to give you a new
somebody
opinion.
else wins.
Right.
All right, gentlemen, let's get down to it so we can get these things marked and our viewers can hold us accountable for our predictions. So, gentlemen, we'll start local and then we'll work our way out as we go. We'll start with the mayoral election. We have Bill McIntyre as the main candidate, and as we talked about the last time that we were together, we have two write-in candidates, Altamont Wilkes and Whitney Burnett as the write-in candidates. With less than a week to go in this thing, I'll start this off. I'm going to Bill McIntyre. I was just a bold statement.
Don't go out on the ledge,
I'm just telling you guys that's what it is. So, and I think we're all going to say Bill, but well, here's kind of a side one. Will either of the write-in candidates garner more than 10% of the vote?
No.
Yes.
Ooh. Which one?
I'm not sure which one. I just think it's going to be less about voting for the write-in candidates and others trying to vote against Bill.
So here's the thing. Well, okay, but okay. I'm sure he has enemies. We all do, right? Do we have 10% enemies out of a population of, what, 50,000?
I don't think it's about him having enemies. I think it's about, even though it's a bipartisan election, it's not.
It's a protest.
Nonpartisan.
It's nonpartisan election. Sorry, it's not a nonpartisan election as it should be.
We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there such a thing as a nonpartisan election? But don't spoil segment B.
But that's the case. That's my thinking behind it. It's not about Bill McIntyre specifically. It's about what people believe, what party he represents, and people trying to vote in opposition. That's the only reason I see anyone getting more than 10%.
I still don't. I think collectively the two write-in candidates may get the 10%, but I'm hard pressed to see one.
Okay, I don't think either or a combination will get 10%. I just don't.
All right.
Is there a side bet on this?
Yeah, we're all on the record for this one. I say combination. Terrence says one or the other. He didn't really want to go on the limb and say which one, but that's fine. And then you say neither. So yeah, side bet on that. And for everyone in the audience, this is for entertainment purposes only.
Right.
In case the tax man's watching.
So wait a minute. Turner, you're combo?
I'm combo.
You're saying one or the other?
I say one or the other. Yeah, we got to be careful with the tax man. You see the whole state of Maryland just got audited. First time in 30 years all of a sudden. So.
And I'm saying nobody.
Nobody.
All right.
All right, next up was City Council. We have 10 candidates here: Christian Alshire, Carolyn Anderson, Erica Bell, Mark Bell, Tierra Burnett, Sean Flaherty, Stacey Michaels, Rich Owens, Peter Perini, and Matt Schindler as our 10 candidates there. 5 will be elected to this year's council. Allow me to start. And I'm going to preface it with this. I'll give you guys my intel, so if it helps you make a decision. I look back at city elections since 2012, and since 2012, at least one candidate that made it through the primary was not elected in the general.
Okay.
Okay, in every city election since at least 2012. I got a little bored, so I stopped at 2012 for that. So with that in mind, in no particular order, I'll go Kristen, obviously. I'll go Tierra Burnett. I'll go Sean Flaherty. I'll go Matthew Schindler. And the fifth one is really going to be tough, right? Because one of the five is not going to make it. I predict that to be Peter Perini. So there's a few candidates I think.
You think Peter Perini is not going to make it?
I think he's not going to make it. I think if we're looking at the fifth one, that's kind of the toss-up. I've been, paying attention to who's been really door knocking in the community, as opposed to running a social media campaign. So I'll go out on a limb and say Rich Owens would be 5.
T?
My list is pretty much the same going down to the fifth. And I'm torn between Mark Bell and Stacey Michael. I think I've seen Mark Bell get a little bit more momentum, but I'm not sure that he has enough. And I think Stacey Michael gets the popular vote, being a little bit more known in certain circles and across the area. So I'm going to go with Stacey Michael.
All right.
I'm going Alshire, Alshire, Burnett, Flaherty, Michael, and Perini.
So you say Schindler will be the one that's not in
Yep.
your scenario.
But he has a billboard.
Right.
Okay.
Trone had $64 million.
No, and I jest about the billboard. I believe it's always difficult, even the fact that he has been he's backfilled a position in council. That one's tough for me. I think those sitting now is going to be difficult to knock off. And I think you say Perini stays and Schindler goes as those sitting as seats. Okay.
I think the reason that Perini would be the most vulnerable is because of how he got in, right? Because with Schindler, there was a process, right? Stacey Michaels was a part of that process. Sean Flaherty was a part of that process. That process was public in regards to their interviews in front of council with them picking Schindler. But Peter Perini's was not. And there was a justification of why it was done. But I think many in the community have other feelings about why it was done. And I think that he'll pay a price for that.
I think some in the community have feelings about why it was done. I think most in the community have a very short memory.
Well, that's what it has been in recent elections. So we will see. I mean, I'm not ready to buck history, especially with the recent turmoil in that building. So.
Yeah, and I think with Perini personally, I believe it's less about the short-term memory, more about some holding long-term grudges. Because I think Perini has been involved in politics in some way or another, on the fringe of it, running for positions at various levels.
Council, school board,
Right.
delegate.
And he wasn't successful.
Right.
But that didn't dissuade him from trying to be involved, even though he was not an elected official. So that's the other side of that coin.
I just don't believe the electorate is going to be giving out points for that.
You may be right.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, moving ahead to Board of Education. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on the docket.
What say you, Reggie?
Oh, man. I have to go Peter Bigford, Stan Stauffer, Melissa Williams, and I'm torn between Robin Spickler and Charles Burkett.
Interesting.
I think Burkett may squeeze in. I know Burkett was top 5 or top 4, I believe, in the primary.
He was.
It's a county-wide election, so I'll go Burkett.
I'm gonna go on a limb. My list is the same without Burkett. I'm gonna say Zentmeyer comes back. I think
She was vulnerable though in the primary.
She was very vulnerable.
I believe she was, but I have a feeling that she's gonna come in and be a little bit stronger for the general.
All right, Reg. Well, either we're going to owe him money or he's going to owe us money.
So you're following me on this one.
Bickford, Burkett, Stauffer, Williams.
Gotcha. Roger that. All right, gentlemen, we're going to Congressional District 6. And for me, I did not know if we were going to be able to get back together before this election because, my intel has changed throughout my travels throughout the state. And I will tell you, prominent Democrats, even those that stand with April Delaney, have been whispering about how poorly her campaign is run. And I remember us coming into when she jumped into the race. My thoughts were that she was going to be able to pick up on the networks that her husband had established years ago when he was a delegate, and that does not seem to be the case.
And she doesn't live in the district.
She doesn't live in the district, and that is one of the things that Parrott hammered her on relentlessly.
And the last time she was in Western Maryland was
Mummers Parade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think strategy-wise, she waited too long to come onto his territory.
So wait a minute, you're saying Parrott's going to win?
I haven't said who I'm. We're just having a discussion.
And we can do percentages.
Right now. Okay,
right?
we're just having a discussion right now. Mr. Moore, you were speaking. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I said my piece. I said from a strategy standpoint, just kind of concurring what you're saying about not being from the district, but it hurts when you came on his home turf because that echoed even louder, right, amongst people that was in his backyard when she came out to Western Maryland. And to come out so late in the election,
right,
I think may have hurt her more than she probably expected. When she came out here, and then on top of some of the antics that people were talking about, which made it more gossip, brought more attention to it, and maybe attention she may have not wanted people to really
well, and
garner.
despite what the Democrats posted as a picture from that one debate, if you watched the debate,
yes, that was to me that was a sign of desperation, because to basically try to capture
he didn't grab her.
No, he didn't grab her, but he wasn't standing over her like demonstrably talking either. It was just a still image of him actually getting up and leaving the table.
Right.
And for them to take that still image and to blast it out there and then and I understand the strategy, then you're trying to tie it to his record relative to abortion and spousal rape and all those things. Like that conversation is fair game, right? However, the portrayal of that picture was just totally disingenuous.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, even as far as we got in these conversations now, that we're not talking about their policies. We're not talking about what changes they plan on making or implementing.
I have no clue what really either one of them are running on.
Exactly, and that's a problem.
Well, I could tell you what Parrott's running on. He's running
common sense.
No. He's running on the Republican platform, whatever that happens to be. And
absolutely.
And probably further right than Attila the Hun. No, just kidding.
I just think when you look at, and you can always tell by the ads, right? I can't watch a YouTube video or anything else on TV without seeing an ad, and they stack each other's ads, right? One plays and the next one plays, and it goes back and forth.
They absolutely do. Can they? Is that? I wonder how you do that. I mean, can you request that? I want because you see a Hogan ad. Guess what the next one you see is also Brooks.
And I
or
don't
vice
know if
versa.
It's required by the station either to make sure that it's
I don't know, but it seems
fairly
like
represented.
Hogan ads have been like double stacked. Like normally, I've been seeing like 2 Hogan ads
for everyone also.
For like one also
that's true.
Ad. And it's like you're hammering like the same. Like these ads are really not talking about Hogan's positions. It's hammering her in regards to her taxes and the rental house situation. Like, are we really going to hammer a candidate about one rental house?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
When the other, is basically a real estate conglomerate, to a certain extent. Like it's just, but that's been the message that's been hammered out. And like, I mean, I'll be on my computer and in the background, those things just play on a loop.
Absolutely.
All
and,
day.
And that's what I'm talking about, a sign of desperation. I'm still getting alerts today of candidates asking for money.
Yes.
For what? Right? So you can put more of the same. It just seems like it's desperation now to flood with robocalls, to flood with ads, and the most egregious, the more egregious the ad is, looks the most desperate you are as far as moving up in the polls. And the ads are getting to the point where they're borderline distasteful in some of the things that they're accusing their opponent of, and it does more harm than good, if you ask me, at this point in time of our democracy, of getting people out to want to vote. It doesn't feel
It will
good.
reinforce the views of those that were going to vote for that candidate anyway.
Right.
It will not change hearts and minds.
It will, of those people who are on the fringe of whether or not they want to participate in our voting
not, right.
system. Now this is why I don't vote. No one looks, even how many conversations I had of people saying, I don't like any of the candidates. I'm just not voting.
Right.
That's not where we want people to be.
No, we don't.
And I think these ads really cater to that.
Agreed. Now it's time to get on the record with this one. Jim, let's start with you. You're probably the least controversial.
Parrot.
Parrot. How many?
80%.
Throw some points on this. Parrot wins by how many points?
It could be close. Parrot +3.
Parrot +3. T?
I say Delaney still wins.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I say Delaney still
I knew
wins.
you were going to hang in there on that.
100%?
Hang on that.
Yeah.
Delaney
Wow.
by how many points?
2. It's going to be a narrow margin.
Yeah.
And it's
So
going to be.
if it's
late.
going to be 2 points, that means we may not know before
Right.
the weekend.
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna be late.
or the next week, right? Because it's the mail-in votes that would decide this election, right?
In which we know that mail-in votes typically come in favor
If
of
she
the Democratic candidate.
if she is down by margins larger than Trone was on election night,
See,
she's in trouble.
I think that's different too, because Trone's main competitor was a fellow Democrat, right?
No. I'm talking about
Trone
2022.
Oh, okay.
Versus
right.
Parrott.
Okay. Against Parrott.
Remember,
yeah. Yes.
because the
Yep.
the
Okay,
big
I got
mail-in votes from Montgomery County and Frederick had to come in to get him to that 10-point
Right.
that 10-point win. So for me, I think it was disappointing that I believe she had a fundraiser in New York with Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yep.
She's done some things at Potomac, with Hakeem Jeffries and all these other folks. It's like she's ran a national Democratic campaign and not one that's local in her district. And prominent Democrats from here to Garrett County are saying she's run a horrible race.
Hey, listen up. Cronkite's about to say Parrot's going to win.
I'm going Parrott by 2.
Okay.
I'm going Parrott by 2. I would not be surprised if Delaney wins, and if Delaney does win, I feel that she will be swept up in some of the other races, and she just benefits from that momentum.
Absolutely.
But my concern, though, is that her district is more rural than also Brooks.
It is.
Significantly more rural.
Especially
Because
with the
with the
remap.
redistricting, right?
Right.
Like you still have that sliver of Montgomery County, but it is not as prominent. And we talked about the polling on this. Delaney was polling worse than where Trone was in regards to the western 3 counties, which may diminish her impact of the margins that she would win by
Right.
in Montgomery County.
Well, we know Trone strategically pumped money into Western Maryland, intentionally.
Right.
And that garnered him favor.
But she didn't do that. I mean, she did not put in personal money, right? And so coupled with the fact that she could not walk around the district and tout the earmarks that she's brought to the community, she had none of those advantages. And then if you remember the polling that we saw, like name recognition was not there for her.
Well, and the reality is the Trone Parrott race in 2022 was a lot closer than I think anybody thought it would be.
No, Cronkite told you. was on the record, Jim.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go.
I'm sorry, guys. It's on YouTube.
Break out YouTube. All right, before
All
we
right.
go to the next race, let's take a break.
All right, so we have 2 races we're going to cover when we get back as a tease. We're going to hit the U.S. Senate race, and then we're going to hit the presidential race.
POTUS.
POTUS. Stay with us. We'll have more of the flip side after the break. Welcome back to the show. We're jumping right back into more election coverage. We've worked our way from the City of Hagerstown mayoral race, our city council race. We have a little differences around the edges and Board of Education, so it'll be interesting when we do an autopsy of how things turn out in the next 2 weeks.
Post-mortem.
Post-mortem, exactly. Now, we finished off with Congressional District 6. Now we're going
But
to
let me, before we go on, let me just say this.
Yes.
So, congressional races,
Mm-hmm.
it's a 2-year appointment, not a
Yeah.
4-year, not a 6-year.
Yes.
So, whoever wins, they got some proving to do in the next 2 years.
Yes.
Do you think they're going to do that?
I don't know. Here's the thing that I think that is interesting that I've seen. So Joe Vogel was the number two on the Democratic side. If Delaney does not win, I am certain that he's going to have his name right back in the hat because, to be honest, he's probably been in the district more than she has during this election season.
If April Delaney doesn't win?
Yeah. So I see him in that race in 2 years.
Let me ask you a
mean
question.
her, right?
Say it again.
April Delaney. You're
Yes.
saying if she doesn't win.
If she does not win, Vogel's name is going to be in the hat.
Oh, Vogel. Okay,
Vogel's
I got
name is
you.
gonna be- and the truth of the matter is, even if she does win, he probably will have his name right back in the hat again.
And I'll pose this question. What has happened in the last 2 years?
What has happened?
Right. Like, where's the bar that they have to do something for the next 2 years based on what's happened in the last 2?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Because let's face
But
it,
well, this election might say something about that.
maybe it hasn't before.
Right, exactly.
I mean, here's the reality. Not quite as much in the Senate, but certainly in the House, you have a lot less power than you suggest you will when you're campaigning. And based on what I've seen, with few exceptions, they follow the party lines, whether they agree with them or not. With
Well, I
with
think-
the possible, there's a few exceptions. Joe Manchin.
Yeah, Joe Manchin, right? But Joe Manchin was not in the House.
He was in the
correct?
Senate.
Right.
But still, he was one of the few people that you would see buck the party lines with any consistency.
But he's in a conservative state,
He's a Democrat. He's a blue
elected
dog.
as he had no choice. He would have not have been a senator as long as he could. Would have if he just would have followed party lines. And as time went on, that became his leverage. So that was the way he was.
But
that was-
nobody learned from the fact that being in the center and doing what maybe you think is right and not what is necessarily always along the party lines is not a bad thing.
I'm a little cynical in regards to the doing what was right. I think he was doing what would keep him in office.
Okay, so he was representing his people. He was voting as his people. He thought his people would want him to.
I think in some states, but I think that there were some votes that he would take in a conservative state that the majority of his people don't agree with either. So let's just call it politics.
But do you think in Maryland, whether this is my fear.
That's
of
not
Parrott.
happening. That's not happening in Western Maryland.
If Parrott is elected, I think he's going to represent some policies that the people downstate that may have voted for him, the few Democrats that he may have got a vote from, are going to say, what?
I think those that are going to vote for him will accept that baggage because he is in the district, and they feel that he would be more in tune with the overall needs.
I'm
of
not
the
talking
district.
about for this election cycle. I'm talking The prove something is prove that you're not in a blue state like Maryland. For him, the prove something is prove that you're not going to be a right-wing wacko Republican.
Well, that's kind of tough because if you look at his record,
It's
at the state level,
It's-
that wasn't
it's right.
I know it's not Senate, but we just had a governor do it for 8 years, right?
do what?
Be a Republican in a Democratic state,
Right.
And walk
He
that
walked
line.
the
And
line.
that's what I'm saying. It's possible,
But Neil Parrott's history has not been to walk that line.
right? Historically, right?
How many budgets did he not vote for because there was one or two things in there that he didn't like?
So you think
And
it's
I'm
no
not
shift
saying
from that
that's
norm?
I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just stating
No,
the
no.
fact.
But the Hogan analogy is the same as
Manchin.
analogy
Yeah.
because you had the others, you had the rest of the state pulling you back in regards to kind of the party that you represented. But and like one of the things that speak to me in regards to the desperation of Governor Hogan, I saw something in the news today on a call with private donors. Someone was asking him about the contention between him and Trump. And then he started bragging to that person about, no, Trump endorsed me.
Yes, I heard that. Yes.
So he's trying to have it both ways, right? He's putting out commercials talking about how independent he's going to be. But when the audience is different, he said, hey, no, we don't have any problems. He endorsed me.
Desperate times call
Go
for desperate measures.
Exactly.
And I think that's a
That was
reaction.
a tale. That was a tale.
Because I think he got into this race in opposition to Trump because he was spending all his time when
Yes.
he left office questioning and pushing back at Trump's
But he
comments
can't
on social media.
win. He can't win with how he got into the race.
I agree.
He need MAGA to come home. And some will and some won't. And I don't believe enough will.
Do you think if they don't come home, do they just not vote, or do they?
They skip that on the ballot.
Okay.
I'm hard pressed to see them skip it on the ballot. I'm sorry. Like I still don't believe MAGA is skipping ballots. I think they're gonna run chalk.
I seen a prominent
They're going to
Republican.
hold their nose and vote.
I agree.
I seen a
believe.
prominent Republican that put a Hogan sign in his yard here in Washington County, and his wife burned it. Did you see it?
No.
We'll talk about who it was offline. I saw it,
Wow.
and I think that is
that's-
perfect symbolism.
That it is, but the question is, when that wife goes to the voting booth, who's she voting for?
If you're going to take the time to go burn something in your own front lawn and display it to your friends, you've already signaled what you're doing.
I don't know.
So, do you know if his wife is
Just
Republican?
wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
So
That was an
so
assumption.
so Hogan can say, "Oh, well, Trump supported me because the public sees it," but the wife can't burn the sign so the public will see it. But then go in the voting booth and go, "Hogan."
Hogan's the politician. She's not.
Everybody's a politician.
Everybody's involved.
Not everybody. Cronkite.
Oh my
God.
God!
I'm a purist.
Moving on.
Everyone
Next race.
is a politician.
No, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir. I'm in the mode of Walter Cronkite and Tim Russell. I shoot you straight down the middle.
You're on the bandwagon until the bandwagon ain't worth being on.
There you go. There you
Right?
go.
Am I wrong, T?
I'm with you.
Wow.
I'm with you on that one. I'm
No
sorry.
soup for you. All right, gentlemen, let's jump into it. I'm gonna go with you, Terrence. U.S. Senate, also Brooks, Hogan.
Also Brooks.
Yeah. How many points?
I think she takes him by 5.
Okay. Jim, where you at? Have you moved or are you still where you were?
I'm with Leisure Suit Larry.
Okay.
How many points for Leisure Suit Larry?
You said +5?
Yes.
What did you say?
I haven't said anything yet.
Okay. I'm saying Hogan +3.
Mm.
In this race, have you seen the state level Republicans really rally around Hogan?
Some of them.
Like who? Like any public figures like Andy Harris on the Eastern Shore, those type of Republicans. Have you seen?
Not
them
that I've
really
seen, no.
rally around him.
No.
So we're less than a week before the election, correct?
Yeah.
Has he come back to Washington County?
Not that I can speak on.
But he spent some time here.
Listen,
He
You
was at the
can't-
ballpark, right?
you got
But-
a $90 million stadium. You don't have to come back to Washington County.
He
He
gave
brought home the bacon.
he gave Garrett and Allegheny a bus ride through,
Okay.
and that's it.
Well, that's because he's got support there. He's
Right,
done
that's his
stuff.
base. Right.
Yeah, this is
No, I get. I'm funny.
you know,
I'm picking
but-
because I know he had to fight the battle out in Baltimore and PG County. That's where he had to spend his time
Right.
to fight because he needs to peel off a significant number of Democrats to pull this off.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And my boy's going to do it.
Listen, I'm looking at this thing and also Brooks by 8.
Oof. By 8.
Does it look like Hogan's going to bed early this
Nah,
election
nah.
night?
You better have a glass of
Wow.
wine and just sit back because, yeah.
So you think it's
Actually, you know what? That race, we very well will know that night.
I believe we'll know that night.
I believe we'll know that night.
Now,
Just
again,
different from what you guys think.
yeah. Well, that's going to be the fun of the night when the text messages are flying back and forth. Hopefully, I don't catch you on your way storming to the Capitol.
Ouch.
I was not there.
No, you were not. You were here. We were filming while that was going on.
Yes, we were.
All right. Speaking of storming the Capitol, we have one more race to talk about, gentlemen.
One that we have, for the record, not touched all season.
No, we haven't. And why? And there's really no need to.
No.
Right? I don't
No,
know if there's an angle of this.
There's
that we
enough
can touch.
arguments going on about that race that we didn't need to it.
Got enough stress in my
I
life.
mean, that falls under the category of not my circus, not my clown.
That's it.
Oh man, well I have some land in the foreign country of Appomattox, Virginia, so I have an escape if things get a little crazy up here. So in this race, gentlemen, Jim, let's start with you. How do you see it? Like how have you seen it since Kamala basically was anointed in this position, the campaign, and where we are, and then how do you see this playing out?
I think it's going to the Donald.
Think it's going to the Donald.
I do.
How many points? Actually, you know what? That's really not the type of question to ask for this race because it's all about the Electoral
Right.
College.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I think it's going to the Donald.
how soon you think we'll know?
Monday.
Monday.
I think that it's going to the Donald. I think that the Democrats will fight it on the other side as hard, maybe not claim election fraud, but they will try to find ways to not allow him in office, again, without storming the Capitol. Or maybe they will. I don't know. I don't think they will. But, yeah. It's
You know the sad thing about this race? I was watching the news where the anxiety level that for those that live in that D.C. region is really high.
I bet it is.
Wondering if they should be boarding their businesses and should they be leaving
This
the
is
city?
not.
This
This is not what the framers envisioned
No.
for elections or the transfer of power. Whether you're talking about January 6th or whether you're talking about the crap that's going on right now.
Right.
The personal attacks, the unwarranted, baseless things that have been said against both candidates are just absolutely over the top.
Let's not forget Arnold Palmer.
T, this is a PG-rated show.
I'm just saying. Some of you gotta laugh to keep from crying sometimes in these. This election is rough. It's rough. It's going to be a rough night for a lot of people in this country, no matter which way it goes.
And I think it's going to be a rough couple of months afterwards.
I agree. In this case, I'm going to say Kamala takes it. I'm going to say it is drawn out. I'm going to be. I don't think we're going to know right away. I don't think it's going to be a commanding win. I think we're going to be watching down to some key states, some key battlegrounds of late into the night. I don't think no matter who wins, there's going to be someone's going to step up and be concede and give a concession speech. But I hope whoever does unites the country, because we will be divided no matter what.
I don't think either of these two have that in them.
And that's sad. That's unfortunate, because that just shows why you shouldn't be a leader. Period. If you can't lose, you can't lead, right? So I really believe. I think she actually wins it, and it's just going back to what we talked about before about sitting out the election. From a standpoint, I don't think MAGA sits out the election. But
no, they don't sit out the election.
No. I mean, I don't think they go down. They don't choose names on the ballots. But I do know some Republicans who already I've spoken to that says they won't select the president. They've even gone as far as put their own name in, right?
Right.
You know, in early elections and having some of these conversations. So, and I see that on the Democratic side as well. So I believe we're going to see, unfortunately, a lot of people who make up the middle base sit the election out, the presidential portion of the ballot, which is going to be completely unfortunate for our country. Yeah. So there's a chance whoever gets elected will be elected by the most extreme in the voting base.
Well, I think that's a given almost.
And that's unfortunate, yes.
Yeah. I'm going with Kamala to win. And what I'll say is this. Really the only way that I see Delaney winning, going back to my point, is if she gets swept up in the wave of Kamala, also Brooks, and then she gets the benefit of that. The Democrats come out and vote for her. I think the thing that just jumps out to me, and not talking about Kamala's politics or her stance or party, I think we as a country still are struggling with the barrier of electing a woman to the highest office in the land, and I think that's sad. And I even look at it from the standpoint of the Republican primary, that Nikki Haley did not get more traction than what she did in regards to that. And I just think that a lot of the turbulence that we're seeing in the polls is that friction in regards to that. But I think that when the votes come in, I think that when the autopsy is done, I think it'll be two groups that really propel her to victory. It'll obviously be women. And in every recent election, black women show up. And then the other group that I think that it will propel her to victory will be college-educated white men.
The unfortunate thing about it is, and again, you know how I feel about polls, but numbers are showing we expect to see more black women come to the polls and support, but we're also seeing a large number of black men not. More
Right.
black men came out and voted for Biden than are expected to come out and
Right.
vote for Kamala. And I believe that takes a front seat to this of being about gender versus race.
Right.
And she has been intentional about not focusing on her gender nor her race in this election, trying to walk that line of neutrality, which is impossible.
But when you send Obama out as your surrogate to kind of put a spotlight on black men, I don't think that did her. I don't think that did her any justice or service. I do think though that it was. I think it was a positive thing to see black men being talked about, like a part of the conversation where they gave black men an opportunity to speak and to show that they're not monolithic, right? And many of them took that conversation and they didn't like it, and they were able to come out and speak their piece. And I just think that black men are gonna have to start showing up at the polls to get their voices heard.
No, I agree. Outside of just, let's take it even broader, right? If it's an issue of race, we assume it's about racism, right?
Right.
But when you talk about gender, there is cultural and religious ideology that keeps people from voting for her as well, right? There are certain cultures of men in this country that will not and believe they should not be led by a woman.
Right.
Right? And, us being a, eclectic, diverse country, that has a substantial amount of population that believe that, unfortunately. So I believe, yes.
I'm not sure I buy that. Maybe I just hope I don't buy that, but I'm not sure I buy that.
I think you hope you don't buy that. And you do that a lot, Jim. But we've learned to love you anyway, sir.
I'm a hopeful guy. My glass is always half full.
And I hope people get past that, and
Right.
because it's in my, not to
I hope they do
question
too.
anybody's religions or their culture, but I believe it's a short-sighted way to look at leadership. And I hope we get past that, and I hope this is just maybe another barrier. Let me say this as well, I don't believe anyone should be elected just to break a ceiling either.
Oh, absolutely
So
not.
I always want the most qualified person, and everyone given that opportunity to be the most qualified person. So I don't lean that way as well, but I think there's a lot of unease that's already coming out about this election, and I think it's going to bubble over next Tuesday.
You know, the thing that's been surprising to me? The stock market has been relatively passive during this period. Like I would have, I mean, there's been some volatility, but I would have expected a lot more.
For what? This is the greatest thing for our economy. It's distracting everybody from everything that's going on. Like, no one's talking about like
the fact
inflation.
that winter's here?
Right. Like, all of a sudden inflation is coming down. Like, everything's working.
The economic numbers are terrific, and just even companies that are reporting earnings and different things like that. Like, things are well, if you're part of the 51% of Americans that own stocks.
And also, spending's down. People don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
So people are sitting still, which means they're not going out there spending. Inflation is coming down.
Some people are not spending. I was on your Facebook page.
What'd I buy? I just got a 20-year-old car.
I'm not to put your business.
Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
So we can't
He got defensive. You
we
said
can't do +3 +2, but what we can do, 538 votes available in the electoral college,
votes.
divided by 2 is 269, 270 to win.
She's 310 at least.
Oh, 310 for the Reg, man. So that means
And I don't even know if that matches up to the exact number.
Well, that
but she's
so
she's
228.
plus 300.
Okay, how about you?
270 to win, right?
270 to win.
I think she creeps in at 280. 283.
Well, I did the electoral college math, and Donald's going to get 292.
292.
292.
Yeah, I did. I had an app with the calendar, or with the
map.
the map on my phone before. It's buried somewhere, or maybe I deleted it. So
Yeah.
So we are on different sides on this one. We're on different sides on the Senate race.
yes.
Two of us are on a different side on the congressional race. We largely agree on the Board of Education.
Just around the edges. You and I we're Burkett.
Yep. We largely agree on the city council, and obviously the mayor, with one guy running and 2 write-ins that aren't going to get anything.
We took a prop bet on that one.
Yeah.
So
So for you, it was Schindler not getting in. I was saying Perini's not getting in. Did you have an incumbent not getting in your 5?
Perini.
Perini.
Perini, okay.
But
Yeah.
I have Stacey Michaels.
But you had Stacey Michaels getting in. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, we got a few other just election and general topics to cover. So let's take a quick break and come right on back. Is that all right with you guys?
That works.
All right. Stay with us. We'll have more of the flip side after the break.
We see, and there's pictures embedded in my mind of, for example, a little 3-year-old girl who's carrying bags of things that her mom had selected, and her mom before her is in here as well. So generations where you can see that this is a special place, something for them to be able to select a neat gift, and to see that transcend across generations. is just a great thing.
Welcome back to the show. Gentlemen, we've covered our election predictions. I'm feeling really good about mine. I didn't even break out the calculator this year. But I've crunched the numbers here, so I feel good about that. Terrence, let's not be jealous. But gentlemen, in regards to
I don't know who you talking to.
the general election, in regards to news and concerns, first and foremost, Jim, you've shared an article with us that mail-in ballots has become an issue where there's been recent burnings of ballots.
Yeah.
What say you, Jim?
So mail-in ballots were burned
In 3 states.
in 3 states, and I just don't know even what to say about that. That's beyond ridiculous, and I hope they catch the people that did it, and I hope they hang them up by their Buster Browns.
Yeah, I said that, as well. Like, I believe you should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law for interfering in our electoral process in this manner, in any manner that's destructive, that is stealing someone's right to vote.
Because how do you tell whose vote got lost? You can't.
You can't. Like, I'm sure there's some kind of audit process in the back end of people who said they dropped something off in that box, and then, them not being counted to some degree. But
And they would have to go through a provisional ballot to,
Right.
to see if that's the case. Yeah, that's
So
that's very
Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, Washington, and then there was one other. Yeah, I mean, it's just
well,
just
in
crazy.
reading the article, though, in Oregon, there was only 3 ballots damaged because it says it was a fire suppressant inside the box that protected pretty much all of the ballots.
Well, that's good.
So, but still, just that type of activity is in essence of a form of voter intimidation, correct? Right, making people feel that they may be disenfranchised.
Well, one of the people on the article called it a cowardly act of domestic terrorism, and I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
I concur.
Absolutely. And hopefully that's the end of that. But
Phoenix is the other one.
just the way the rhetoric has been, I just don't have a lot of confidence that we haven't seen the last of.
And they caught
Shenanigans.
the Arizona guy.
Yeah.
Dieter Kloffkorn is who is suspected of having done that. Who said his actions were not politically motivated.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Second topic, gentlemen. Is there really a such thing as a nonpartisan election?
Yeah, absolutely not.
No.
No.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if you look at the
Just look locally,
right?
right?
In the Washington County
Because
Republican,
both
Washington
central
County Democrats,
committees
and will have their list of candidates that
We'll
they
make
want
sure
you
they're
to pick.
pointing out who you should be voting for.
Right, and why do you think that is?
Well, because their charter says that you can only support Democrats or Republicans, right?
Right.
So they're
Yeah. So I mean that's crazy, and that's another thing. That and things like and also closed primaries, in my view, are something that just needs to go.
yeah.
Yeah, and you can always follow the money, and that's what it boils down to. And you know, say nonpartisan, yes, but who's putting money in your accounts? Who's doing the
Right.
advertising? Who's doing the campaigning on your behalf? And it tells the story. And once you see that, then you already align and assign yourself to your party, and it's out of the window. Nonpartisan election, completely out of the window. Don't do it. Just I think it's insulting right now to even continue to try to say that. Just let people, come out, campaign with their party, and go forward.
Yeah.
Because it's not the case.
Yeah.
Well, it's a cover up of sorts,
I agree. Yep.
pulling the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah.
I got a million of them. Just
third one is how are we feeling about term limits?
I am definitely in support of it. It'll never get done, but I am definitely.
There's too much self-interest.
Right, and you know, and the soft money. And by the way, I think term limits have to apply to staff as well, because I think they have a much larger impact than any of us would care to imagine.
When you say staff of whom?
Of the various congressional representatives and senators. That's a lifetime assignment for them, and even if their Republican doesn't get elected, they probably stick around for the next one.
Yeah. I don't know about staff, but you know, again, I really haven't thought it through about term limits on staff and somebody's employment, but you could think about it here locally. We have city and county administrators, right? How much true authority and power or influence they have because they're day to day, right? So yeah, I not really have thought about it to that degree, but it's something to consider if you're going to do term limits.
Yeah. And but the other thing about those positions that you just spoke of, they don't have to answer to the voters.
No.
Right, exactly. And can anybody disagree with the notion that the framers wanted us to step up, serve our time, and then come back and go back to real life?
Like George Washington,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you know, and so that opens up another can of worms, and I'll just pose this question to you. Would you want your city or county administrator to be a political position?
Well,
I think it's a political position by nature.
It is by nature, but you take it to another level when you open it up to the voters, right? Because then the machines on both sides, the agenda walks right in the door, as opposed to the will of the body.
Elected body.
Yeah.
except for, just like there are
Because
nonpartisan.
if that was the case, wouldn't you see more contention between the body and the administrator if the administrator felt like that they were empowered because they were elected by the Republicans or the Democrats and they had a mandate to do a certain thing? It would seem to me that they would be bucking what the elected body is saying more, and it would create more of a friction.
How does it work in home rule? Is the county executive appointed or elected?
I'm not sure.
Because, we tried home rule here a couple times, failed every time.
I would say, to your point, and again, I'm not sure how home rule will play into it, but there is something positive about two conflicting points being able to collaborate for the best and the good of all. That's ideally, right? Ideally what you want, right?
Right.
Conflict is required, conflict is necessary, but it should be done through a solution-based collaborative effort to come out with the best, and allows different perspectives when you have people coming from different sides, different perspectives, different aisles, and representing different groups of people as a whole. That's what we want, and that's what it should look like.
Right.
Does it always play that way? Absolutely not.
I feel like it's less and less.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And there's no controls to protect it.
So I'll throw this one out there just to piggyback off of, and let's not go too far down the rabbit hole because I know we're running short on time. How do you feel in the city in regards to having districts, in regards to representatives for districts?
We had that for a long time.
And how was it in that time, in your
I
opinion?
was way too young to be worried about it. I have.
And the reason I say that is that I would love to hear from constituents. Do all districts and areas of the city feel that their interests are being represented?
Absolutely not. I'll say that. I'll put money on it. Absolutely not.
Because I think about the eastern part of the city, right? If you think about near the old hospital, Cannon Avenue, all through there, all the folks that have been ravaged and been dealing with the drugs and the crime more so than anyone, I feel and see, from the needles and everything else. I just think that they would be more empowered if they had a representative that answered to them.
And I'll go on the other end of that, because I know a lot of people in the community believe those headlines, those communities are the only people getting focused.
Right.
So
but that's what happens too,
Right.
right? When one area gets a lot of focus, they say, "What about us over here?"
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And we've seen that from, when Jonathan Street started getting a lot of headlines in regards to historic preservation.
Why is everything about Jonathan
Why is
Street?
everything about Jonathan Street?
Yep,
Yeah.
it happens. So I'm for districts. I think it's great. Again, that offers perspective. It offers an opportunity.
It offers a different level of accountability too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you get to hear different voices. Does it add more conflict? Absolutely, because now you're trying to get reelected by a segment of people that you're working in the best interest of, instead of the best interest of the many. So I think it's pros and cons to both
Yeah.
ways.
We've got about 30 seconds.
Well, it's been fun, gentlemen. I can't wait till the text messages are flying back and forth on election night, as we normally do. Some of these races, I think, we'll know late in the evening, next morning. There's some races that I think that are going to linger out. I don't think the presidential race is going to linger that long. I think Wednesday we're going to know.
All right.
I think this thing's going to break one way or the other. And there's not something in me that says, I could definitely be wrong, but things could just break for Trump, and it's like, we know. Now, the issues that we have as a society are going to continue regardless if the race is decided or not. And that doesn't say anything about the court challenges that we're probably
Well,
gonna
ultimately,
We're all responsible for our own actions. I know we don't reach the masses, but the few that we do reach with this show, I hope everybody puts their best foot forward and be the example for what we should be as a country, no matter who wins and who loses.
Well said. We'll go out on that. All right. Well, thank you guys, and thank you for all the time that we had tonight. We hope that you'll like us on Facebook, follow us on X, and send us your feedback to the FlipSideTV.com. That is feedback at the FlipSideTV.com. But more importantly, join us again next week for another episode of The Flip Side.